Alrighty, I guess it's April 6, 2023, and I figured I'd give a new current garden update with everything I got going on. So, one of the things I've done this year is I'm adding a little bit of a container garden. I managed to score a ton of pots from someone who had to move out of their house on Craigslist, so they listed everything as free. I got like 4 carloads full of stuff, including all these pots and most of the other stuff over here, like this tree and stuff. But I'm just trying to fill this in with lots of herbs and some other stuff that can grow in containers. But this is just going to be kind of like my Zen garden zone. Eventually, I'll get rid of this couch and just kind of make it so there's a little stream that runs through here when it rains. We'll head out in this direction. But otherwise, I've been working on my seedlings. Most of my seedlings are now transplanted. There's a few seeds I have left. I got some hatch peppers and marigolds and these guys that haven't sprouted yet, but everything else like is basically sprouted. There's a bunch of mustard greens, which also mustard greens grow everywhere that seeds hit. There's a bunch of mustard greens over here. There's a couple sunflower seeds, so I got those guys over there. Over here I have all my mushroom compost blocks. I've grabbed a whole bunch the other day, and these haven't been spitting out too many mushrooms yet, but there's a couple over here that do. These black ones are lion's mane, and I'm not seeing any lion's mane right off the bat. There's a little bit on the top, but we picked those kind of clean. But anyway, so there's going to be some mushrooms. I'll show you some golden oysters I have over here. But otherwise, I got tons of seedlings. Like this 30 trays that like each of these trays, actually probably 31 if you count that. And there's another one over there, so 32. And most of these trays are about 18 seedlings each if they're squares, but a bunch of these have way more than that. So there's 500 seedlings right here. So I have tons of extra seedlings, and I'm almost fully planted. So all these are going to get given away or sold, or I'll have extras for replacements and stuff. But like basil and tomatoes, I just threw out seedlings from last year and they went crazy. But like a lot of them, like all the black seedlings or the black pots are seedlings from my garden last year that are various cherry tomatoes. I'm not sure which ones. Everything else is mostly labeled. And then like basil, I just threw out a ton of seeds and basil went crazy. So I have a ton of seeds. I'm going to try to plant stuff. There's some rosemary I need to figure out a couple permanent spots for. There's a few marigolds over here, lots of peppers, some dill that I'm about to transplant and put in the ground. And I have some more of these mushrooms. Almost all these are blue oysters, except for this guy, which is all the golden oyster mushrooms. So I have a nice little sprout of there. What I have been doing is like all those are relatively fresh mushroom compost blocks, but these are the older ones. So like you can see they look like weather beaten stuff. Like you might see a couple mushrooms sprouting out of here. Like here's one. It's technically edible, and this one looks kind of crap. And there might be a few more in here, but otherwise they're basically tapering off. And once they do, then I'll shred these up with oh wait, and also here's some lion's mane growing. So there's a little bit of lion's mane. So I'll just grab that little chunk. Maybe when it starts changing color, I'll pull it no matter what, because it's like tapering off. But I'll shred all the leaves up with the mushroom compost blocks, and then mix it in, and this becomes some mulch in the garden, and I'll show you that here in a second. Over here are my hops. There's Ari, she's just playing around. I have a bunch of strawberries and hops in this plot. I cleared out the weeds in my neighbor's garden because they were getting in the fence line, but I took my hops and pulled them up and uprooted them, and then tilled this section, and then redid the bricks and put it back in place because I had Bermuda grass invaded this whole entire section. And like basically when you till it, you can pull these out, but if you don't till it, these guys are just deeply rooted, and you won't be able to rip them out, because that's the issue. One of the main things about tilling clay soil in Texas is for me, is to keep weeds at bay. So this is my tomato plot for the season. There's, I think, 58 tomatoes here. There are rows of 8. I think there's rows of 9 at the back, a couple of them. But otherwise, there's 7 rows. I'm going to throw down a bunch of mulch here soon. I'm letting things kind of sprout so I can rip them up. But I also have to dig down deep and try to pull out some more of the grass rooted in here, because this section got hit by Bermuda grass really bad invading. That's why I put the cardboard here to kind of prevent Bermuda from running straight into the garden. This section, you can see my squash are now popping up. There's some garden beans that are popping up. And there's going to be lots of corn sprouting in here too. So like over here you got corn. So this is going to be a Three Sisters section. Three Sisters is a Native American style of planting where you plant corn, green beans, and squash together. And so these guys are going to grow all in this section, like up until you see all these metal tomato cages. So over here is all my peppers. I have 4 rows of peppers. Sometimes I use a ton, sometimes I don't. I didn't get to canning my peppers last year when I should have, but I did make a whole bunch of tomato sauce. And tomatoes are a bunch of various types. The first like 3 rows are all purchased plants from the store. Then the next last 3 rows, along with half this row, are from seeds. So these guys are some of the various tomato seedlings that I'm not sure which varieties they are until they start showing signs. Over here I have some lettuce, I have herbs, there's some Swiss chards, there's thyme. I had a invasion of harlequin bugs on my kale over here, but it bounced back after I basically eradicated most of them. I have to be ruthless with some pests when it comes to that. So they are bouncing back because most of it looked like this crap, and now all of a sudden it's super green again. So I'm going to throw a few more plants in here. I have some broccoli I wanted to plant, but I wanted to get rid of them because harlequin bugs target all broccoli, kale, and cauliflower varieties. I saw a couple over here. So this is a harlequin bug. I don't care about these guys, so that guy just died because they have been ruining my plants. But otherwise, I try to be good with nature, but pests you kind of have to just deal with and get rid of them, eliminate them, whatever. So over here is my main section. So what I have over there, I have 2 sections of square plots. I have not formed rows, they're just in rows and so I can walk between them. But this is actually tilled and then in rows, and that was tilled, and this is tilled, but this is not tilled, and that's not tilled. But otherwise, I formed this into rows, so this is going to have wood mulch in the back sections over here. I'm going to throw down a bunch of newspaper, so all the rows where you can walk down will be filled with newspaper. Then the wood mulch that's over there, I'm going to just throw down on top of here. The corn squash section, I'm probably just going to throw down wood mulch once I know where everything is sprouting out of, so I can just work around it. But over here, I've done rows, so the first row is going to be squash. There should be a few sprouts in here. They're just getting into gear. Still have to pick out crap like plastic bits because I do use a lot of shredded leaves, and you wind up with people's trash in there, so I do my best to keep it out of there. But so this row is going to be first row is squash, second row is going to be various plants. I see I think a cucumber, or this might be a melon seed because I threw out a whole bunch of Israel melon seeds out here. This row is going to be all cucumbers. There's a few sprouting now. There's a couple little guys like these guys. You can kind of see there's some brown spots because I threw in compost I dug up holes, threw a seed in, covered it in compost, so it's easier for it to move around. This row I'm going to have watermelons and cucumbers. This row is going to be all melons. Also, there's going to be actually that's probably more watermelons and melons. This row is my potato row, so you can start seeing these guys kicking up. I got a whole row of potatoes. This one is going to be basil and maybe a few other things. I haven't decided yet, so I have a little bit of space left on the second row, some space left at the end. Well, I'll probably put my dill here. This row is going to be root veggies, so I'm seeing a bunch of little sprouts like these guys, which I'm not sure which ones they are offhand. I think there might be radishes. Cats seem to like pooping in these rows also. So what I'm doing here in between the rows, to keep the sun from just completely baking everything, I fill these rows in. I throw down just paper bags. These are the leaf bags. Then I shred up the leaves and fill it in here. And then the last row I've got over here is the onions, and Ari's just kind of exploring around with me. But anyways, so this is the current state of most of everything. The other section I have right here is asparagus and catnip. It used to have strawberries here, but I've cut most of the asparagus. I'll grab that guy here in a second. There's another one right here. This is catnip right here. Catnip it started with one big plant. That died. It dropped seeds everywhere, and now I have tons of catnip everywhere. But I'm going to just do this whole section as basically asparagus. So I used to do strawberries and stuff, but it ended up dying. And I like having my asparagus section, so I'm just going to keep expanding on it. So over here will be all asparagus. And then after that, I mean, this is mostly everything I've got going on right now. I've got some potatoes in these buckets. I have this as dirt. I threw some more potatoes in here, so I'll let them like grow and then maybe retransplant them. Have more asparagus I started from seed. All these other plants are probably going to go into that other section back here. And then also I uprooted most of my actual like grass or like Native American or native onions. I think a lot of this is a leek variety, so basically like I need to do something with it. But you plant one of these and then like in 2 years one plant could become like this whole bin, so it goes crazy over otherwise. And this has some cilantro and coriander and some other stuff in the bathtubs. And like I grabbed this the other day, someone threw this out, but during the summer, if you need to keep your plants in pots alive, then put them in a kiddie pool. Then you can fill it up with water and watch that. But otherwise, there's a few other plants over here, some more onions, and a few other things. But that covers most of everything what I've got over here. So there's a few more things I want to plant, maybe some okra, some more eggplants, and a few other things. But otherwise, I'm mostly planted. And I just need to finish adding my mulch and like finishing up the rows over here. So I'm about halfway done on here on shredding leaves and adding mulch. And then I guess I'll run over to my compost pile real quick since I'm just covering everything. This is going to be my new tree. That tree over there is half dead. I keep it for sun. The sun starts over here, heads in this direction. This tree blocks it in the shade. This tree blocks shade. So when it's really hot during the summer, I'll tie some ropes to the top of this guy and then pull shade cloths to cover this because it's wide open here with the sun and it'll bake everything. But otherwise, this is my compost. This one's looking pretty good when I dig deep in here. I'm adding this and rotating it, and this will be almost ready. But I had 3 full bins that were about to this height that I just scooped up and added all to the garden. There's a little bit left. There's some in this bucket, some in this bucket, which I'm just using as needed for dirt. But otherwise, like, I'm going to add more cardboard down these rows to keep weeds at bay. And that's one of the reasons why I do as much mulch as I can. 1, to keep the sun from baking stuff. 2 is to keep weeds at bay. So like this same section, I'll throw down more newspaper, then mulch on top of it. So I'll just transfer all that over there. And then this section over here is all my plants from last year that are dead. And there's a lot of weeds and stuff in here and a lot of grass runners from Bermuda. So I just dump this over here, shred it up with a lawnmower, and then dump it in this one. And then I'm going to transfer those to that compost pile. But I'm giving this a lot more time to break down than the other compost, like just leaves and grass from the yard, because there's tons of weed seeds and other stuff in here. Every weed I ripped out of the garden ends up in that pile. Then I'll shred it, then add it to there, then add it to there. And compost will be another thing that I've covered before, but I usually use lots of shredded leaves, mushroom compost, my grass trimmings, and tons of Starbucks coffee whenever I can grab some. So that's the current state of the garden, and I'll keep at it. But here pretty soon, this weekend's focus will be adding mulch and planting a few more plants in the ground. But otherwise, tomatoes are looking pretty good. I got them in the ground a couple weeks ago, and I just need to rip up as much grass and prevent grass from growing everywhere, and pull out all my grass runners and other crap like that from in here. So just the main thing about tilling means I can rip up my Bermuda like easily without it being a 3-foot runner underground that's 6 inches deep. So anyways, that covers everything. Here's Zora Pups. She'll be watching over the garden most of the summer, and that's my current state of things. Thanks.